Francisco 49ers deep in the heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, D. Clark. Garrison Hurst, stiff farm going 99.
This is the 49er Faithful UK show, and this is week 17. The home season at Levi's finishes this Monday night or Tuesday morning for the UK Faithful with a visit from the Detroit Lions. It is a match-up of last year's NFC Championship game. Since then, I think it's fair to say each team has had a wildly different season. The Lions are still aiming to win the number one seed in the NFC. I'm Gareth Ellis, and I'm joined by Lee Gowland.
Ho, ho, ho.
Oh,
oh. No.
You're full of Christmas cheer, I see.
I am, mate. I am. Merry Christmas, mate. I hope you've had a good one.
Yeah, hope you've had a good one as well. No Paul, no Nadji. We'll have to soldier on without them. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a lighter show in terms of the usual format. And Lee and I are going to have a chat. There's no history corner. But there's a few games I think to go back to, even if last year's where we got away with one, and I think the Lions are going to want to put that right. You think the Lions are fired up for this, Lee?
Oh God, yeah. I think they want to walk in here and annihilate us. I think they want to banish the ghost of the NFC Championship game.
Totally.
The one thing I'm worried about is if they try and run up the score on us. Hopefully they don't try to do that, but the way they've been scoring recently, they've got the ability to do that, which is quite scary. Luckily enough, I mean, defensively, we are still a good team defensively, which is surprising because we've spent the last 17 weeks saying how bad Sorensen is, but we are still reasonably good defensively.
You know, some people have. I don't think the defense has ever really been the problem. It's been our offense's inability to score more than about 17 points. We've had a couple of games where we've scored, I think, less than 12 points a game, haven't we? A 6 and a 10.
Yeah.
So that's where the problem lies. Shall we? Let's have a look at some injuries. There are some notable ones from the 49ers. There's a long list on the screen if you're enjoying this in televisual high def. Aaron Banks, Robert Beal, Spencer Burford, and Dre Greenlaw are all out. Questionable: Tatum Bethune, Colton McKivitz, Mooney Ward, and Jair Brown. You tell me that McKivitz is not playing either, Lee. So that's three of the O-line, including one of them is a backup, are out. And Jalen Moore's done for the season. So
that's the reports I've seen on social media, both Twitter and Facebook. It looks as though McKivitz is going to be missing as well. So we're going to be left with Brendel and Pooney as the recognised starters on that O-line. An O-line which has struggled mightily all season long. So it doesn't really fill you full of hope that we can contain any sort of pass rush that is coming from the Lions on the early hours of Tuesday morning, which is New Year's Eve, as we all know.
A 1 a.m., 1:15 a.m. kickoff, I think, for us on the Tuesday.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so the last red eye, but hopefully there'll be a bit of party atmosphere on the Discord. Yeah, worrying times, I think, for the O-line. It's time for Shanahan to show, can he really adapt to this? I think Brock needs to finish the season strongly. I think a lot of people on the offense need to finish the season strongly. And with behind that makeshift O-line, it's going to be tough, I think, for everybody, including Patrick Taylor, I assume, is running back. Guerendo, is he?
Guerendo might be playing. Guerendo might be playing.
Something positive.
So I think you're right there. Some people do need to finish the season strong. And I think the person who has most pressure on them to finish the season strong is Shanahan. Because we're coming up against a team who've had their fair share of injuries. And in fact, when you look at their players on IR, they have more cap space on IR than what we do. Yet there's a gulf between... obviously the win-loss record. They're 12-2? 12-2, 13-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, 13-2. So, I mean, they've been through adversity, but they've handled the injuries. They've adapted to the injuries, and they've had some pretty major injuries. I mean, they lost Aiden Hutchinson midway through the season.
I think defensively, they've...
Yeah. And I think at the time,
the injuries.
I turned around and said, that could possibly be the Lions' season over, losing such a pivotal piece. And that was based off watching ourselves the last few seasons when we've lost pivotal pieces, but they've adapted and they've overcome that. They've changed the game plan and they've adjusted and it's worked. Whereas we don't seem to be able to do that. We can't seem to be able to play when we don't have a full roster, all of our stars. And that has to come down to coaching. It has to come down to the way we approach the game. Yeah, it has to come down to how we do the play calling. So it's interesting. So Shanahan, for me, based off what you've said there, Shanahan has to finish this season strongly. And it doesn't mean we have to win, because we're going up against probably one of the favourites to win the Super Bowl. Definitely get there from the NFC side. As long as we put points on the board and we can get over those red zone woes, which we managed to do 2 games back, but last game they were there again.
Yeah.
So we have to do it. We have to be able to put points on the board. We're playing at home. It's going to be difficult, though. It's going to be difficult because what we just mentioned, the O-line is just unrecognisable. So that's going to be hard.
That's it. You can score points on the Bears. I think their offense is, there's weapons everywhere. They've got a very strong O-line, and they've got an OC who's at the top of his game at the moment. And
I just wish we were playing the Bears.
Yeah, well, not the Bears anymore. Sadly, onto the Lions. It's come on, we've got to find something positive. I think there's our defense matching up against the offense. I think is perhaps a closer match than our offense against their defense.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to keep the score respectable. And when I say respectable, when you see me score prediction, it's not respectable at all.
No, it's dirty.
Yeah, because I've seen a few people turn around and say, you know what, the Lions might put up a 50 burger on us. Not a Levi's, they're not. I think our defense is good enough to stop them putting up a 50 burger. I still think they're going to put up quite a few points on us. But yeah, I think the defense is probably going to be our saving grace come the early hours of Tuesday morning, because I think the offense are going up against the defense that are inconsistent. The Lions, you know how this always say defenses win championships. That's the thing that's got us worried about the Lions, because when I look at the Lions and when I look at the Eagles, out of the two of them, the Lions are great offensively. The Eagles are great on defense, and they're pretty good on offense. So it kind of tips it in the Eagles' favour to having an NFC winner. And I don't like saying that at all.
You're discounting the Vikings and the Packers, I think, a little bit prematurely. The Rams
discounting them or just completely ignoring them, because I don't think the Vikings or the Packers have a hope in hell of winning. I think if it's the Vikings or the Packers that represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, the AFC team will win.
Bold.
Yeah.
Well, it's not upsetting anybody.
Well, it might be upsetting some people.
Well, okay, we'll have to live with that, I think. I think most of us probably quite happy to see the Lions in the NFC Championship game. We're taking the NFC Championship game. Yeah. I really just hope that this game can be played out without any injuries for either team.
Yeah,
I think that regardless of who you want to see win, it's good in the playoffs that teams have got their best players available. So, the last thing I want to see is any pointless injuries at this point of the season. A strong offense. I think there's weapons. Yeah, Amon Russell Brown, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs has already got over 1,000 yards rushing and close to 500 receiving. Sam Laporta's got 600 yards, 6 TDs. It's a bit like our offense used to be, where there's just riches and informed players all over the place.
Yeah, and you have to ask why that is. You have to ask why they're playing so well, because on paper, all line aside, on paper you look at each one of those positions, and I think we've got better players in those positions outside of the O-line. So why they're playing so well? Is it purely the O-line, or is it the fact that they have an offensive coordinator who's dedicated to that role, dedicated to play calling, and dedicated to creating a game plan that fits the skill sets he has on the field?
Yep, there's a difference in coaching. I think that
There is.
Yeah, a difference in approach there. I think, as you said, the Lions are. We should have man for man the better players, but
Yeah.
it's a bit chalk and cheese. This offense just purrs like a well-oiled machine, while ours just sputters along.
So here's a good question,
and it's
for you.
never run properly this season. Go on,
Here's a good question for you. So, I mean, for those listening on the podcast rather than watching on YouTube, we've got the Lions offense on the screen, the starting offense, and we're doing a 3 wide receiver set here. So, looking at who you've got on the field there for the Lions, which player outside the O-line, forget about the O-line, is there any player there you'd swap for our starter?
I mean, the season they've been having, I'd probably swap St. Brown or Jameson Williams for Debo at this time. They've both been effective. He's not been, and I think that's probably about it. I mean, Jamar Gibbs is probably better than Patrick Taylor. Fair enough. He's no CMC, but he's probably he's definitely the better running back who will be out on Tuesday morning, whenever it is, out of what we can put out. Kittle, obviously, Laporta's having a good season, but he's no Kittle. And Goff, Goff's a bit of a renaissance man, isn't he? Playing his best football, I think, of his career, and consistent. He always puts out a good game. Sometimes it's a great game, but he doesn't seem to be having poor games.
So the thing with Goff, he's very similar to Matt Stafford. When you have a look at his stats, as soon as he's under pressure, his rating plummets through the floor. And you can see why he's been so consistent this season. The offensive line that the Lions have played incredibly well this season. They've got some really good pieces. And obviously the marquee one for me would be the right tackle in Penny Sewell. He's been great ever since he entered the league. And you just look at some of these names. Kevin Zeitler, Frank Ragnow, Christian Mahogany. He was a rookie. And I remember looking at him last year when I was doing all those millions of mock drafts. And he always came out quite highly rated in everything I read about him. So they've picked up a really good rookie there who's come in very first season playing left guard, a very important position. And he's done well for them. And then you've got Decker on the left as well. That is a solid O-line there.
It is.
A really solid O-line, which means Goff has absolutely ages to pass the ball, which is why he's so consistent this season. And I reckon Brock Purdy behind that O-line, he'd be. I mean, he's rated higher than Goff at the moment. I think he's rated either 9th or 10th quarterback at the moment. I think behind that O-line, there's a very good chance he'd be rated number 1.
Hopefully, Kyle will be watching closely because this shows what a good O-line can do. I think if you've got that solid O-line, it just elevates everybody else. The quarterback's got more time. The receivers have got more time. There's more margin for error, I think, on some of the broken plays. It's a great position to be in, and fair play to the Lions for investing in their O-line for years. I think it's one of those things, even through the bad years, you always knew that the Lions were going to have a decent O-line.
Yeah, definitely. So
a different philosophy. So
it is. So later on the show, once we finish talking about the matchup, just remind me to talk about draft value. Yeah, just remind me to talk about, because I've got something that I've just thought of. I mean, it might be debunked straight away, but I've got something that I've just thought of. So just remind us about that later.
The know much about the Lions defense? You've got an image? There we go.
Yeah.
Talk me through it, Lee.
So they've been pretty inconsistent this season, apparently. From what I've read, there's quite a few people excited that we can put up points on them. Obviously, completely forgetting that we've got 0 O-line, but people think we can put up points against this Lions defense. And when you go back and look at their schedule and how they've played this season, there's very few games where teams haven't put up high teens, early 20 points on them. I think there's 3 games where they kept people under double figures. And those games were against teams that weren't very good anywhere. But they don't strike you as a team that you should fear, other than maybe it's the 2 safeties. The 2 safeties have had an outstanding season. Again, Kirby Joseph, I remember looking at him, doing the mock drafts thinking I wouldn't mind Kirby Joseph coming in. You've got Branch. He's been playing really well. But obviously, they've had huge injuries on defence. I mentioned Aidan Hutchinson. They lost him midway through the season, and I thought, that's it, the Lions will collapse now. And they proved us wrong. But they proved us wrong not because they adapted entirely to losing him. They went out and got Zadarius Smith and picked up Zadarius Smith. And he's come in, and he's playing with them as though he's played with them for years and years. He's just slotted straight in there, and he's now their difference maker on that defensive line. He's getting pressure to the quarterbacks game after game after game. You've got DJ Reader. DJ Reader's pushing up the middle, and he's pushing the quarterback back while he's pushing the defensive line back. So that's going to be an interesting matchup with Dominic Pooney, because Dominic Pooney's coming up against a player who's in form, playing for a highly rated team. So I'm looking forward to that matchup, actually. I know it sounds... You tend to want to watch touchdowns, good passes, good runs. I'm looking forward to seeing what Pooney does with Reader.
There we go.
Outside of that, the cornerbacks, they hit and miss. I think we can throw on them, but we can only throw on them if we've got time. And the only way we're going to have time is if our people that we're picking up off the street to come and play O-line give Brock time. And it's highly unlikely that's going to happen.
Well, this is where Shanahan needs to demonstrate he's an offensive genius and put a game plan together. We're going to have to lean on the run game. I would expect to see Debo employed in the run game directly from the running back position, as I think he was last week. Seems a long time ago now. It's probably for the best. The matchups are going to be interesting to see where we try and attack this defense. If we are going to do short, quick passes, screen passes, stuff that's worked well that Shanahan seems to have moved away from in terms of attacking deep over the middle. I think that's going to be a struggle. You need a bit of time to allow that to develop. It could be a long day, but this is the sort of game where Brock's got that opportunity to show he's worth the contracts that are being talked about. He's got to have a good game. He hasn't had a good game, I think, for several weeks. The Bears game was perhaps not representative of NFL quality teams. So what do you think? Does Brock need a good game?
Me personally, I don't think he does. Because I can see how good he is. Will he need it for confidence? I don't think he will need it for confidence. I think he's an intelligent man. I think he understands why he hasn't been getting the results he needed this season. I'm not talking about final results. I'm talking about performances. Why he hasn't had the performances that he potentially expected him to have. Obviously, the O-line, we've talked about it. The O-line's been pretty poor. Even when we had our starters in, it was pretty poor. So we're not even using backups anymore. Like I said, we're dragging people off the street. I don't think Brock needs a big game. Not for me. He might need a big game for other people, but to be honest, it might work in our favour as well as far as negotiating a team-friendly contract is concerned. Because again, put him behind the Lions' offensive line, I think he's rated number 1 in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because give him time, he's going to find that open receiver. He's going to manufacture players. He's going to be able to get around defensive schemes. And it's just needing time to do that. So I don't think he necessarily does need a big game. I think Debo does need a big game.
I was going to get to that. I think he's somewhere around 860 yards, I think, for the season.
Yeah.
So I think he's got that 1,000-yard season within his sights. Same with Kittle. I think Kittle was only 50 yards or so short. So there is a good chance he could do it. He has had a good season, I think, Kittle. He's been one of the few bright points along with Juwan Jennings from the offense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that season could have been even better if Shanahan used them a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, we have this conversation all the time. Shanahan gets in his own way, and he tends to, once he has a favourite of the week, he sticks with that favourite of the week and just continually gets the ball to them, regardless of how they're performing in the actual game itself. He's got all these weapons and he doesn't utilise them in a correct manner. It should be a complete surprise to all opposing defences who's going to get the ball. But we've seen it week in, week out. It tends to go to the same person all the time. because that's how he does his game planning, and he should be spreading it about. For me, I don't care if any of our receivers or tight ends ever have a 100-yard game again. I would like them all to have 99 yards.
Yeah. Spread the ball about.
Exactly.
The Lions do that well. There's a lot of
do.
players on offense with a few 100 yards this season. There's opportunity everywhere, and I think we do seem to be a bit fixated on one or two players per game,
which is worrying. And you kind of hope that he's going to get over that hump. He's been a head coach now for 8 years, 8 seasons. This is his 8th season, is that right? Yeah, 8 full seasons. His time management has improved. Some of his decision making with regards to challenging has improved, but it just seems some of his play calling hasn't. And you're just hoping that maybe it's this season's wake up call. Maybe
I think it hasn't worked. I think the preseason was a big reason for this. I think the holdouts, the injuries all throughout preseason, and I think catching up on being a bit lopsided to skill position players highly paid everywhere, and going a bit thin at running back and O-line because of the money invested in a handful of players. You need those players to perform. One's been injured. Well, 2 of them have been injured, and one of them has had a down season. So suddenly that's I think a big part of it as well. We never seem to click at all this season. Hopefully a nice long break, no football after the first week of January, rest those bodies, get that offense properly installed next season, and hopefully get Brock sorted early, and look forward to the draft. Did you want to talk draft value? You said to chuck it in at the end, but we've segued seamlessly in.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is, obviously, it hasn't been the season anybody expected us to have. And the way we've operated over the last few seasons, you can see the contracts that we've got. You can see how we've managed to fit those contracts in. We've given void years, which means further down the road, we've got a lot of dead cap space where we're still paying players that aren't actually on the roster. I'm wondering whether or not a downturn in a season as big as this, and to be honest, it is quite a big. We're going to be picking in the top half of the draft. I wonder if they'd figured on that in all the calculations going forward, because yes, we're going to have a top draft pick. We're going to have the potential to move up, trade some draft picks, or even trade a player, by Debo, and get a high draft pick, possibly top 10, possibly somewhere around 5 to 7. To take the very best offensive lineman that's in the draft. And it's a thin draft on offensive lineman. So if we want anybody that you can plug in straight away at day one and do something, there's a good chance that we might need to move up. But have they figured on that rookie's contract through the draft?
You would hope so.
Or had they expected to be picking somewhere between 26 and 32? Season after season after season, which is a significant drop off when you look at the rookie contracts from picking at 5 to 7 to picking at 26 to 32. That's a significant difference. And I wonder if
you make it work, though, don't you? I think you're only partly in control of your draft position, so I think you take what you get, and you've got to manage accordingly.
Yeah, you do, but obviously. Go back to Trey Lance. They traded up for Trey Lance, and what they said was, we don't expect to be in this position this high up to be able to do this for years and years to come. We're only 3 years since Trey Lance. So to me, they didn't expect to be in this position, and they're now picking around about where we would have been. So that was pick 12. Obviously, we traded up to do that. But there's a very good chance we're going to be picking round about pick 12 again. So in my mind, I'm thinking they didn't think we were going to be in this position. And they may have done contracts for some of the veteran players, some of the restructures that are higher based on the fact they thought they were going to be picking up a rookie somewhere between 26 and 32.
Yeah, a good point. I think you probably would have planned for that. I think you can't predict the future, but I imagine they do sit there and look at the team and how they feel, and have some sort of idea of where they think they're going to be picking.
So,
if nothing more than bottom, middle, top. So
that plan maybe trade someone, trade one of the high wage earners, and as I've said, bye-bye Debo. For me, he's top of my list now. If we can trade him and get good value, then I would do that. Because as soon as we have an
we need a refresh, and
do.
I think partly he's a little bit of a victim of a cut there, but I think something needs to change, and money needs to be made, and I think he's probably the most prunable, and it's going to force our offense to look a bit different, which I think will be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he's kind of let himself down a little bit this season. He had to go with Jake Moody, telling him to step up, and then he's failed miserably ever since he told Jake Moody to step up. Some of the stuff he's done, and he's a captain, some of the stuff he's done before the game, riling the opposing players up, that's not what a captain should be doing. And going all the way back to the whole holdout or asking to be traded back in 2022, just in the lead up to the draft. All that there, for me, he's not worth it. He's not outputting enough for us to do that.
Agree. Totally agree. I think even if we didn't need the investment elsewhere, there would probably be a case to move on. I think from a player who's been very effective, but that seems some time ago. The last time he had one of those really good games that he was churning out in 2022 and 2023, perhaps. So, well,
let's hope he doesn't have one of those games this Tuesday, because one of us may be right in their prediction.
Oh, well, should we go on to that? I think we've talked enough about the game and our in-depth analysis and lack of preparation. Without Paul, there's no responsible adult on the podcast. So this is what happens. Chaos.
Right. So as you'll be able to
predictions,
see
score predictions. Here we go. Something. So, it's all to play for on this. So
it is. So Paul has been responsible adult, or is he? Is he? So he's gone
clean
for a win.
Adult. He has.
Yeah, he's going to go through the season and he's going to wear that badge that says, I never selected 30 points. Well done, Paul. Where you at in the league again? Let me just quickly have a look at that.
More victory.
You're bottom. So obviously I'm top of the four of us, so I have to go first. And I'm a little bit, I'm struggling a little bit. I've got two different scores down. They're very similar. But I've got two different scores down. So the Lions are 3.5 point favourites on the road, so that's basically a touchdown to them. The over-under is 50.5. And it'll come as no shock that I think the Lions are going to win this. I think they are very good offensively. I just really hope we can keep the score down. Both scores I have the Lions at exactly the same score. So it's not their score that I'm
going to have to pick one. Going to have to pick one.
So I've got... Why hasn't that gone into... there we go. I've got the Lions down. I was getting 31 points. And to be honest, 31 points against this team, if we can keep them to that, I'll be happy, considering the way we've played and some of the teams that have blown us out, the likes of the Bills, the Packers. I would say essentially the Dolphins, but some of those points came right at the very end. But yeah, I think 31 points to the Lions. And where I'm struggling is because of our O-line. We're at home. We should be able to put points on the board. But I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how many points that's going to be. And there's not that much difference between the two of them. So I'm going to eventually go with the 49ers only getting 20 points. And when I say only getting 20 points, I still think that's quite high.
That was a long route to get to exactly the same score that I've got written down. So literally,
but both teams exactly the same.
31-20. Lions win. Do I adjust it though?
Well, if you want any chance of winning this, because you're only 6 points behind me.
Yeah, that's exactly. I need to get some points back. We're gonna do slightly better. Give me. Lions 33, Niners 24.
Right. So, do you want to know what my other score was?
24?
Yes. So, the other score I was looking at is 49ers 24, Lions 31. But it's just the O-line that's putting us off.
Yeah.
I don't think Brock's going to have a second to throw the ball. I could be wrong, I mean, these guys that we've picked up off the street or picked up off other people's practice squads, they may come in and be absolute gems.
And it'll say something if there isn't that much drop off.
Yeah, definitely.
It really will.
So the only one we're waiting for is Nagy. Unfortunately, Nagy's I'm not sure if he's just outside the Arctic Circle at the moment. I know he's in Iceland. I'm not sure if he's moving around Iceland, but as soon as we get Nagy's score in, we will fill this in. Obviously, Nagy there is 4th in the table. He's 8 points behind. I think Nagy has to do pretty much the same as Paul and really hope that he gets a good score that's different to what both you or I have put in there.
But you know how Nagy loves his dirty points, so he's probably relishing this one. Anything exciting going to happen this season? Kittle's going to get his yardage. I reckon he gets the yards in this game. I think that does kind of matter. Some of the players will have some kind of financial bonus for hitting targets like 1,000-yard season. Obviously, people want it just to salvage, I think, something of personal achievement out of a disappointing season. So I think Kittle's going to get the yards he needs and a TD in this game.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I think Kittle will get the yards that he needs. Hopefully they don't feed Debo to try and get the yards he needs. He's 150 away from 1,000, something like that. He's got 2 games to get that in, and he might get that against the Cardinals, because the Cardinals are gone into free fall. So yeah, I think Kittle he's probably going to get the yards he needs to get him over that 1,000 mark. I'm kind of hoping that we feed Juwan Jennings. I want Juwan to have another big game because I think he deserves it.
I could see it being a JJ game for sure.
Yeah, he's put the effort in this season.
He has the big games when we lose. So
yeah, when he's being called upon, he's stepped up. He catches the ball really well, and I like him because he just winds the opposition up, and that's my type of player. I love that from him. So hopefully they feed him. If Guerrero does play rather than Patrick Taylor, I hope he stays injury free. And I think he's got an opportunity here to have a 100-yard rushing game against the Lions defense. I think he can potentially do that if we go back to how we used to run the ball when we started Jordan Mason at the start of the season.
Yeah.
So it all depends on what happens. And as you saw against the Dolphins, we kind of put Debo back there and let Debo do some stuff. So, yeah, I think Jennings, Kittle, and potentially Guerrero will have good games.
I think there's going to be perhaps a bit more reliant on the pass game. You wonder if signing some patchwork offensive lineman is going to make Kyle think twice about how much he's going to be able to run the ball. Are these players going to be where they need to be when they need to be there to make the run game work? It's a tough challenge. For people who haven't necessarily been playing with the first team or even with this team for most of the season. So I think it's going to be pass heavy, and I think we should be seeing some fairly shallow depth of target from Purdy. I do always like seeing those designed rolls out where the whole offensive line goes one way and Purdy buys himself a bit of space by rolling out to the other. That's what we're going to need to do. If we can get that going, that's maybe where we can hit the secondary deep and surprise them and maybe get a long JJ or a long Kittle touchdown. I think we're going to get a long touchdown this game, 70-yard plus, because we're going to struggle to move the ball. But there we go. That's bold.
I mean, that would be nice if it's Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, or I would love to see Jacob Cowing. I want to see the guy get some targets. I think he's earned it from being pretty reliable on the punt returns this season. So I'd love to see him get a few targets.
Yeah, the only thing that would make us nervous about a long touchdown, if we're throwing long rather than yards after the catch, is the 2 safeties back there.
Yeah,
because they have had a really good season. So we could see Brock being intercepted a couple of times if he starts throwing long.
Yeah, well, it is going to be a test for him. He's got to prove that he can play at a high level, even when there's a lot of things not going your way. and he's got to prove he can do that. I can see him getting some yards with his legs in this game, and I think he might have a sneaky 1 yard touchdown run at some point during the game to go with Kittle's touchdown. I went for, which was a shame. Maybe I was going to chuck in a pick six as well. I need to reach 24 points, don't I? There we go. I've been waiting for the pick six. Ronaldo Green, pick six, and another interception by D. Winters. He's had a couple go through his hands this season. He needs to get one. And Goff has been generous to us in the past.
Defensively, Baldies. It's a difficult one this week.
We got no sacks, I think, against Miami.
Yeah.
A sack, that is bold.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. A sack.
A sack.
A team sack. Everybody gets the sack. I mean, Bosa's going to be playing. I mean, again, for me, I think Bosa's he's not playing to the level you'd expect for what we're paying him and for the hype around him. He's getting pressures, but he's getting no sacks from those pressures.
He doesn't impact the game like JJ Watt continually does.
You know what? I do this, and he always has a really poor game after I've done it. I'm going to say Nick Bosa is going to have 4 sacks.
Wow. That is bold.
It's bold, isn't it? It's bold.
It is.
Let's face it.
Yeah, he's another player who's had a down season. I think he's probably got less reason to. He's the high-paid edge rusher. He should be able to be successful regardless of who he's playing with. And I think he does seem to have suffered with the fact that there's less talent along that line, particularly in the interior, because I think Leonard Floyd has done reasonably well. He seems to huff and puff sometimes, but I think he's probably our leading sack leader. He's probably at 7, 8. I can make that number completely up, but it sounds probably about right. So, yeah, Bosa could do with a good game.
Yeah, he could. Definitely. That's pretty much it. I've got as Baldies on defense. I was struggling for that one.
That's probably it. So I think we've pretty much covered everything. This is just keep people entertained before the new year, and it will be the last home Discord of the season. And the Cardinals game is yet to be decided on the time, but I think as a playoff between 3rd and 4th in the division potentially, it's not going to be a prime timer.
So believe it or not, this game is going to be the first game in about 17 years that I will not be able to watch live.
That is shocking.
So I'm going to a wedding on New Year's Eve. So I have to be up about 5 o'clock in the morning to get sorted, to get through to the hotel where we're staying at, because then we have a taxi picking us up at 10 to 10 in the morning. So we have to be through there all done and dusted to get into the taxi to then take us to the venue. So there's absolutely no way I can stop up and watch the game. I'm trying to think when I'll get an opportunity to watch the game, because obviously we overnight on New Year's Eve. We're probably not going to get back home till maybe 3, 4 o'clock New Year's Day. And then Sunderland are playing at 8 o'clock. So it'll be a case of I'm going to walk in the house, go get changed, get my Sunderland shirt on, and then go straight to the game. So it's more likely going to be January the 2nd. And again, I've got an important meeting early on January the 2nd. So it's going to be the afternoon, even the evening, by the time I get to watch the game. So hopefully it goes okay.
You can catch some highlights. I'm sure you'll be able to catch some 10 minutes of highlights, though.
Well,
if there is 10 minutes. But we're jumping ahead. That's the Cardinals game. So
I was going to say, while the ceremony's going on, I might have it on my phone. If I've got good connection, I'll be watching DAZN on my phone.
Yeah. Well, why not? Why not? Okay, I think that's probably enough for this show. And indeed, it's enough for 2024. Happy New Year to everybody for the next few days. Hopefully you'll get this out before the game, won't you? So a bit of time to say Happy New Year.
I'll have this out tonight.
Wow. There we go. Hopefully it will give you a little bit of enjoyment as we head towards the end of a pretty disappointing year. Thank you, Lee, and thank you to everyone who listens and watches the show. Discord will be probably starting after dark, I think at a 1:15 a.m. kickoff. We shall see. Hopefully Naji will be there to keep us all in line, as he usually is. Facebook will be off for posting until there's a reaction thread, hopefully. We'll have to check whether Eric will be still running that at 5 in the morning. We will be back in the new year to review this game, but we've got a lot of off-season talk to think about as well. Plus, we'll have our awards at the end of the season. Certainly, perhaps after the Super Bowl, I think we'll wait. So, go back and check out a few of the games we've had and see which players have impressed you this year. Any final thoughts, Lee?
No, just echo what you said. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
2025 is our year.
Totally. Yeah, it'd be nice to see the back of this one, I think, from an NFL perspective. Yeah, it's not been there. But still, it's thanks for joining us throughout all of the good times and the bad. Hopefully, a new year, new start.
I do have a public service announcement.
Oh, good thing you remembered.
Let me just check this. So obviously, with this being the last show, it'll add to the stats a little bit. Let me just check, because I think we've had another record-breaking year.
Have we, in terms of downloads?
Which is quite surprising, because we're doing a lot more on YouTube now. So I kind of thought there might have been a little bit of a drop-off. So if I just quickly go on here and have a look at this,
maybe it's evidence that people would, if people have to listen to us, they don't want to have to see us as well.
So last year, we've had record year up on year. Every year we've grown. So last year the total downloads was 18,059, and this year we currently have 23,036.
Thank you very much to everyone.
That's a 5,000 download growth there. So we're still going in that upward trajectory. So yeah, that is quite pleasing to see.
And on a down season, so.
And on a down season, which is, again, on a down season and a season where we've done a lot more YouTube work than we've done podcast work. This will be episode 36, I think, 36 or 37. Last year we had 60 episodes. So we've only just done over half the number of episodes, and we still smashed through the download record that we had. So, I mean, 23,000 downloads a year, over the moon with that.
Yeah. Very much so. What can we say? But thank you to everyone who's downloaded that, or someone who's gone round and set all their family members' phones to like it, so it's downloading everywhere, all over the country. So anyway, there we go. Let's wrap this up. It could well be a long night, early morning on Tuesday. I'm going to stay up for it. I've got the day off, so hopefully we can have a little bit of a party atmosphere on Discord, because this one really doesn't matter. I just want us to not go down too easy. Let's face it, my expectations are that low. Yeah. But there we are. Anyway, good to speak to you, Lee. Go Niners.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in the heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, Detroit. Gareth Lee, stiff farm going 99.